I'm DJ Flash from the Rappers Rap Group.
Larry Captain Rapp Glenn. I West Entertainment.
And you guys are truly pioneers of the West Coast, is that fair to say?
Absolutely. You know, Captain was the first one to lay down a 12-inch on the West Coast with Disco Daddy. They did the Gigolo Rap in 1981. Then he came with the Bad Times I Can't Stand It in 1983.
With Kimberly Ball.
And produced by Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. So yeah, we're pioneers.
And Flash, you were kind of a pioneer too in terms of being a white rapper, right?
Yeah, I was the first white rapper, not that it means anything nowadays, but at the time it did. I was the first one signed to a rap label and pursuing rap full-time as a career, yeah.
So you were from Sacramento, but you moved to LA?
Mm-hmm. I moved to LA, and at the time I was in Kern County. I was a DJ on a radio station. I was playing all the hip hop and rap in the early 80s that was coming out of New York. And then Duffy Hooks started the Rappers Rap Disco Company in Los Angeles. That was the first rap label on the West Coast. And I heard Disco Daddy and Captain Rapp's record. So I got a hold of Michael Duffy Hooks, and I rapped for him on the telephone, and he said, come down, I'm putting a group together, and I got signed to the label.
We were just like, for instance, like almost like Flash said, Duffy came across to me one day. I had met Disco Daddy at a club. Matter of fact, he was performing with, doing a show for Magic Johnson, and we had met, and he was having auditions, looking for somebody to kind of form a team with, and so that's kind of how we met. I actually got the gig with him, and that's how we started working together. But I fell in love with like Curtis Blow and Sugar Hill Gang, and so when I heard that music, and then I thought, wow, and so I wanted to do something similar but a little different. And so the West Coast vibe, I don't know, in my head the West Coast vibe was just a little bit differently, maybe musically for me. And even during that process, because it seemed like in LA everybody was there. I mean, Dre was there, and Cube was there, and I mean, the Dream Team, and Toddy T, and it was a different thing. And everybody kind of hung out together. Most of the people hung out together. It was a different spot almost every Friday, Saturday night. You could hit a different spot, and they would love to see the guys come in. So almost every night, Disco Daddy and I, we would head out, and we would have a show to do almost every night at every club. And then when we started finding out more about Roger Clayton's thing,
Uncle Jam's
Uncle
Army.
Jam's Army, and then Uncle Jam, they were the first ones to bring. I think they brought out LL first, and Run DMC, and then we started doing some things, some of the shows with them. So it was not for lack of work. We could go out and do something every night.
Yeah, they thought it was a fad. And matter of fact, I remember in the early days, people said, what kind of music do you do? And I'd say rap. And they said, what's rap? I mean, you don't hear that today.
Right.
But so finally, instead of trying to describe what it was, we just told them we did computer music. They said, oh, okay. Because you had Kraftwerk and all that stuff coming out. So, but you mentioned the East Coast, West Coast thing. A lot of people think that just started later on, but actually Duffy Hooks had worked at Enjoy Records, and that was with Bobby Robinson, who was the brother of Sylvia Robinson, who started Sugar Hill Records. Anyway, he did sales over there. He came to the West Coast, started Rappers Rap Disco, and right away, from the first records, we felt that East Coast rejection, because a lot of the people thought if it wasn't rap from the East Coast, it wasn't real rap. So Duffy, we had a problem trying to get our records out outside the West Coast, but Duffy said, you know what, we can sell enough records in LA to stay afloat and keep doing it. So that's what we mainly concentrated on. We kept West Coast beats. We were more into the R&B type stuff, so we kept those kind of beats, and we just made music for the West Coast, and eventually it caught on. And his record, Bad Times, is one of the ones that broke the ground.
Right, because it did better back east than on the West Coast, right?
Yeah.
What's ironic is even when we went and got a distribution deal, we got a distribution deal with a company that was on the East Coast, out of New York. So And yeah, that record changed my life, actually. That record really changed my life.
You want to talk a little bit about that? It was a very important record. It was a response record in a way too, right?
Well, you know, I had moved to Colorado, and after Disco Daddy and I broke up, I moved to Colorado, and I kind of thought about not doing any more music. I said, I'm just going to go, you know, get a job and kind of hang out. So I get a call from Cletus Anderson, and he says, you know, I got an idea, and I want to know if you'll be willing to do it for me. And I said, well, give me your idea. He kind of told me what he wanted me to do, and he says, can you write? I said, yes, I can. So I said, all you got to do is get me back to, you know, Long Beach, California, and I'll kind of do my thing. So I get back to Long Beach. I sit down and started to write. Now, the track originally was a Rich Kaysen kind of track that he had kind of perfected, and I kind of used that as my basis to write to. And Cletus wanted me to write something that was more reality-based, and so normally I could write a song in a day or something, but because Bad Times, because I wanted to be what I consider to be real and perfect, it took me about 3 weeks to write it. And then we were working on it, and here's the thing about how I always say how karma just happens and works for you, and so I'm going to record the record in Hollywood, and all of a sudden I'm on the corner, and there's this lady on the corner named Dina Andrews, and we started to talk. And as Dina and I talked, and I told her I was going to the studio to finish up a record, you know, lay down the vocals, and she said she had managed a couple of guys. And I said, well, who are they? And she told me it was Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. So I said, you know what? I'd love to get them down there to do this thing. So we talked. They came down, and right from the beginning it was just unbelievable. I mean, the whole connection was just ridiculous. And what's ironic is, you know, my birthday is on June the 6th, and Jimmy's is June the 6th as well. So it was just one of those things just kind of worked out. And even for the vocalist, I had written everything, but I knew what I wanted for a vocalist, but I hadn't found the person yet. And so I go to the board and I start looking for the calling numbers to get somebody to come and sing. And I called like 3 people, and then finally I got this girl, Kimberly Ball, on the phone. And after talking to her, I said, you know what, can you sing for me? She sang, and I said, can you come down? She was down within 30 minutes. I gave her the lines, and I said, can you just go and run with it? And there it was. And so to me, the song was meant to be. A lot of people, I think, on the East Coast thought it was the answer or something similar to The Message. I didn't put it together for that.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
I did not do that. It was just...
It was perceived that way.
Well, yeah, and you know, it was like I lived in Long Beach, and so I used to look at the streets of Long Beach, the things that were going on in the streets of Long Beach. People get robbed and just different things. And then even the world stuff, you know, Reagan was president at the time and things that were going on. And so I just kind of tried to write reality. And it just turned out that way. And yeah, the record, I mean, before long, all the radio stations had it playing, and next thing you know, I was getting calls from New York and everything to come out and perform, and it was just it was a good time.
Yeah. Well, fast forward then 10 years, and you put out those amazing compilations that I was fortunate to be a part of, and it was a sequel to that, right?
You know, we had talked about that, and what's ironic is I only did it because of him. I did it because of him. You know, he had called me up and said, hey, you know, I want to do this song. You want to do a Bad Time continuance? And, you know, a lot of times when people ask me that, I would tell them no. Flash called me, and because Flash was the first person to hire me to perform for pay in Kern County out there in Bakersfield, Taft area. So I said, you know what, I'll do it. And so that was kind of how we hooked up for that. And then, and I think even before then, we kind of stayed in touch. We kind of lost touch. And then all of a sudden, I think since then, we've kind of stayed in touch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you want to talk a bit about that landmark compilation series that you put together and how the idea came about?
Yeah, well, at the time, CDs were just coming around.
The very early 90s.
Yeah, the very early 90s. You're talking 91, I think it was, 92. And so a lot of the 12 inches singles had not been, you know, transferred over to CDs. They weren't available to people. So we said, well, look, this is a good opportunity to put a lot of those tracks on CDs and to document the birth and rise of West Coast rap. Everybody knows about the East Coast, but nobody really knew the beginnings of the West Coast. And, you know, the West Coast was thriving on the hip hop scene before NWA. I mean, the world thinks it all started with NWA, but that's not true. So we approached Rhino with the idea. Rhino loved the idea. And so went around and gathered up all the 12 inches from all the guys, licensed everything, and got Billy Jam to do the liner notes. So that was an historical compilation right there, because Rhino, with the distribution power they had through Warner's, they were able to take those CDs worldwide and exposed a lot of the tracks and a lot of the early West Coast rappers to the whole world internationally. So yeah, that's how that came about, and that was an honor to do that and to be able to document the true birth and rise of West Coast rap.